Welcome everybody to the June 19th, 2023 meeting of the Newcastle Environmental Review Board. I'm John Rosenblum. With me here is David Horowitz and Ivan Walter. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from April 17th. Anybody have any comments? You weren't here.
I was gonna say, I don't think I was here, so I'm just,
I don't have any comments. Oh, so we can't even adopt them then? We have no quorum for that.
Right, so, okay.
Okay, I will give these to you anyway, Dennis.
Great, okay,
There's some typos I corrected.
okay. Oh, got you, okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. Next item, Renzulli, 91 Paulding Drive. Mr. Graham?
Yeah, hi. We are adding I think it's 428 square foot deck.
Can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Oh, please, volume.
Yeah, this is as loud as it goes.
I could actually hear you okay.
Yeah. Oh, hi.
much better.
Dave, okay, yeah, Dave Graham. So we're adding there's currently a sunroom. This is one Paulding.
Okay.
And there's a sunroom to the rear of the house that had sliders, but nothing else. So you would open up the sliders and they acted as windows, but they also acted as doors without anything outside. So we are adding a deck in the rear. One section is approximately 12 by just shy of 20. That's your real deck. And then there's a bridge or a walkway that goes around the other two sides. That's about 4 feet. So we submitted the plans. And what we're doing is, because of the proximity of the septic system, we are cantilevering the 4-foot section of deck to the rear of the sunroom. And so what we've added after meeting with Dennis on the site is we added putting gravel below most of the deck, 2 sections. One section is a 4-foot cantilever, 8 feet above the ground. So we don't think we need that because the planting will continue to thrive. And the second thing we've added in today's submission supplement is some planting, 2 rows of 9 wetlands planting that we have a planting plan of. So we're making this addition, which is a deck, which is semi-pervious, but we are putting gravel below the areas that would have an effect that is not wanted, and we're adding some landscape planting to offset and mitigate the new work.
Dennis, what is this, Stephen? What is the issue? We're 130 feet from the.
No, well,
What's
he shows that from the rear, but do you see what's listed on the side as a drainage swale, I guess, to the west?
yeah.
Yeah, that's like a daylighted, really strict water course. So that's what triggered, because they were within 100 feet of that. And that kind of separates, this is this Mohegan Drive unimproved. It's a town drainage easement, and it separates 91 and 85 Paulding.
So, and that's the wetland that they're in the buffer.
They are within 100 feet of that, yes.
Got it.
So the whole property is,
So the wetland hasn't been marked or flagged, or,
It's pretty well field delineated because it really is just the water course. It's like a V.
but so that's the wetland itself though,
Yeah, just the drainage swale.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
So where's the 100 foot? Is the whole house within 100? I mean, there's no measurement, there's no measurement of the buffer, there's no buffer delineation.
true. I believe the whole deck ends up in the buffer because the 52.6, which goes to the 1 story, if you go another 50 feet, it's gonna
Right.
take up
the
most
whole
of the
deck.
house, yes.
Right.
so the concrete head wall is the discharge point of the drainage swale?
Right, it daylights at that point.
Okay.
Wait, but no,
And where's it?
no, it's not that. That's where it daylights,
you're in-
where
I'm
it
sorry,
comes
you're in the
out, it
back.
goes the other way,
You're in
right?
the back. There's actually, so this is interesting. There's actually two areas whereby, and you could see sort of at the corner where it says stake set, that's like kind of the confluence of
Yes,
these
David, see
two
the arrows?
areas. Yeah,
What am I missing?
It flows this way.
Right,
right, that's one. And
That's
then
one.
the
so
other,
that's what I'm saying, it comes
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah, but the other
Yeah.
one that's the operative one is the one that runs alongside the property.
correct.
That's
So
the
they,
one I'm
so
where
they
is
saying.
end up
that?
meeting
So
at
this,
the corner.
this drainage
That's the
swale?
Oh,
Yes.
this one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got
That,
it.
okay,
Yeah.
that also
Got
runs,
it, got it. I
that
didn't- I
also
didn't
runs
see it.
north.
Yep.
You can pick it up. I printed out the area because I knew this is a funky part of town. So that's basically it right there.
Okay.
And I
And
know
there's no wetland outside of the
It's just-
V-shaped swale.
it's just the water course, exactly.
Okay, no, thank you. I was looking in the wrong place.
Is there any functioning habitat going on there?
You know, it seems to receive mostly, drainage from, this is a pretty sloped area. It looks like it is a lot of coarse wash, in the beds, so I assume that, which kind of makes sense based on
Right,
the
so
slope,
during
and it
rain
gets like the
events,
first
yeah.
flush, and then as things start to lose energy, the heavier stuff's gonna drop there, and then the rest just kind of continues.
So the area of the new deck is just existing lawn that is being,
Yeah, there were some shrubs that were removed that were like right up against the house, but for the most part,
No neighbor.
yeah, I would say the backyard is, I mean, I wouldn't describe it as a thick turf cover, but it is maintained as lawn, yes.
And it's all above, the new deck is all gonna be above ground.
Yes,
Which is gravel below there.
right,
And it's a wooden deck, so it's semi-pervious. The water's gonna flow through.
periodic,
Right.
Okay.
just some footing stuff.
Right, so that's the only impact on the quote unquote footprint.
I mean, I would suggest the same thing. Whatever area they're gonna stockpile the dirt, just put some hay bales around it and stick
Right.
it and.
right. Yeah, he has, when I was out there, he didn't, the erosion controls, they've been installed yet? They weren't installed when I was meeting with you guys, right? Last
No,
week?
not yet.
Okay. So that's gonna be part of, like, what Mr. Horowitz is saying is that, I don't know where, wherever you guys look to put equipment, things like that, just to stockpile materials, you kind of want that corralled. I mean, you may be utilizing the driveway and that's fine, but just make it such that, even if the erosion control, the silt fencing needs to just be kicked out a bit, just such that anything that, you know what I'm saying, washes down slope, gets captured by the mesh. That's kind of the fabric, that's what you're looking for at the end of the day.
Yep, we'll do that.
That'd be the only thing I'd suggest.
And just curious, how was the location of the plantings?
Well, I had gone,
So,
I had gone over that with Dennis on site. And so it's a very nice semi-flat backyard. And what we had discussed is that, the location behind the house is a good spot to put buffer plantings because there is some skunk cabbage that kind of wraps around to the right of the stream if you're looking at the backyard. And so we had discussed putting about 19 plants there, which would basically encompass the 400 plus square feet that the deck
Put this in the, put in here.
encompasses.
Yeah, I think
Why here?
because
Skunk cabbage is over here.
I think what they're saying is it's between the deck and
Right.
the stream, so any runoff is gonna get
So it's interesting.
filtered through the new.
No, it just looked maybe that there was a path next to it or something that they were,
Right, why that,
Well,
why that configuration in that specific location?
right, well, it's funny, there's a fallen tree out there. And they're allowed to keep it there, it's definitely a wooded, it transitions like from, you know, turf cover to the woods. And it's just interesting that the way that the tree fell, literally to the other side of it, you go down a contour and that's like, you know, I'm like, okay, now you're in wetlands, there's all the skunk cabbage, whatever, and then to the other
It's like a
side of that
perfect
fallen tree.
demarcation.
Exactly. And so, you know, as there is a lot in Newcastle, it's fairly open, the whole understory. So I said, you know, to me, you have two opportunities that, you know, I think the board would probably look at as well. One, if you want to, you know, go along the drainage swale, which is sort of on the western side of the property, and those would be like, you know, probably more of a line planting, you know, parallel to the water course. But I said, you know, the other area in the back, you know, which you have like sort of this open wooded understory, I said, I think that would benefit from, you know, and I gave her actually the appendix A as it's referenced in the tree preservation code. It's just a list of recommended species that we have for canopy trees, understory trees, and also happens to have shrubs. I assume Steve Coleman put it together at some point. And a number of the shrubs on that list happen to be, to me, more affinity to wetlands and wetland edges and wetland areas and have some level of shrub tolerance. Some have a good level of herbivory, deer resistance. So I said, you know, you could, you know, choose from these, and I said, I think this area would serve best, so.
I know the backyard is pretty flat, does it generally pitch this way more than it does this way?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
so then that
yeah,
makes
sense.
especially when you
Pitches
get back
down.
there, yeah,
Down this way?
absolutely, you definitely have.
Down towards the east?
There's a descent, yeah. Because I can tell you again, I printed out your aerial, that's why I'm pointing to a table, to an image you probably can't make out. So I know from, you know, doing work and giving wetlands permits to 85, yeah, their driveway pitches, goes right down.
Mhm.
And then when you get to here, it really pitches down, so, yeah, so the landform definitely in this direction going down.
What
And
does
that's
that
the nice thing.
unused street appear like when you're there? Can you tell that there's a right of way there?
No, you can't. You can't.
It's treed, and the only reason you can tell it's a right of way is because the owner of 85 keeps getting upset with me that why don't you take down the trees that are on town land that are whatever, and DPW keeps telling me, we don't take trees down in drainage easements, we don't, unless there's an issue with impeding the drainage. So they don't treat those the same as you would if you call me, hey, there's a tree in front of my house, I think it's gonna fall, and if it's in our right of way, then yes, we would potentially remove it, but drainage easements, they don't do that, so.
The tree falls in the woods and no one hears it.
That's kind of, that's the hope at the end, and it doesn't block water, that's the hope at the end of the day, yes.
Pretty straightforward.
It's one for one.
Yeah, I mean, they tightened it up a bit, but like the area that they're planting, you know, at least when we were out there, seemed to generally, we seemed a little larger frankly than the work that they were doing against the house.
Good.
Which is kind of the depiction here mostly of the dirt. She's leaving the green, I think that's Pachysandra or something. I said, that's fine, you don't have to go ground crazy, but this really is bare. So I said, it would be nice to definitely vertical structure, add shrubs, all positive, and these are native.
They'll do well.
Yeah, Yeah, Cleffers does a nice job of being deer resistant. It smells great in August.
Great.
Good, so other than.
Questions?
Yeah.
Comments? No? Issues? No?
No.
Okay.
It's good.
Good. Entertain a motion to approve the permit.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Carries.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Okay, have a good night.
You
You
too.
too.
Thanks. Bye, David.
Bye. Good. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay.
Aye. So that's it?
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic.
The only other item
We can turn it off?
I would share, well, if you want me to share with you, we had a pre-application meeting.
Oh, okay.
For the Upper Minkle Dam.
Sorry?
We had a pre-application meeting with DEC, a number of divisions of DEC. I'm gonna try to remember all that was there. There was dam safety. There was the person
On
who kind
Minkle?
of ran the meeting, yes. There was, I think like a remedial division, I'll get to that. And Habitat didn't have much to say, but I think someone in that, like wetlands, in that capacity as well. No resistance in terms of the general support of the project, there was understanding with respect to that. The only item that there's gonna be a change order for, and I just wasn't on top of this when, they kept meeting with us and they would go out and they were doing sediment testing of, where they're gonna have to do some dredging after they remove the dam. Is I guess they only went down a couple inches, and I was like, oh yeah, the Corps requires 2 feet of over dredge depth, it's like, everybody wants to know, what's the new substrate going to be? And the significance of that is that a couple of the samples came up with like exceedances for lead and a couple of other metals. So in that removal process, they wanna know like, okay, so,
Where's this gonna end up?
are you getting low enough, such? So that's the other issue that we'll see how that turns out. So the proposal right now is to sort of move it to the side and cap it on site in an area that is going to be uplands after they remove. That's kind of the proposal that the county is kind of pushing, because monetarily, I guess, if they have to dispose of it and truck it off site, that's gonna raise costs.
Right.
So that's what the consultant was sort of advocating for, but at this point, this was just a pre-application meeting,
But they're not
so,
gonna put it anywhere where there would be like active recreation use,
Well,
right?
or it would be capped.
Trails or stuff?
Even if it was, if it's capped.
Right, and my first reaction, yeah,
Who's the consultant?
Tectonic.
Tectonic?
They've been on this, I think, for
Years.
8 years, 10 years, something like that, yeah.
And the reason to dredge anything?
They have to do some levels of stormwater, more for volume purposes designed, because the folks in Austin who still are gonna keep the lower Minkle Dam, they need to only have, they gotta leave so much freeboard, you're only allowed so much overflow during, 100-year storms. So the design certainly has a series of areas that are open water that are really gonna function as like basins, and then, channels to sort of just a
This is
series
just a
of.
volume.
Exactly, but then to the periphery of that is gonna be all emergent wetland, so.
Could they further excavate a different area that doesn't have? Or is it contaminated evenly across,
The problem is that,
like a higher level of lead?
Sure. so I think they're following, in terms of that design, the course, the water course that was likely gonna be, kind of.
Created.
Uncovered, reestablished, whatever words, because I'm sure that's what was there when they made the dam, and that's what ended up filling up, so it's kind of just following that. The lead thing, because I remembered I was talking to the town engineer about it, I said, look, we stopped using lead and gasoline in 1970, whatever, but I said, ain't going anywhere, it's, you know, it's on the periodic table, that's as low as it can go, it's lead. So I said, depending on how far you go down, you know, and this is just a basin with a dam, so I mean,
It's
stuff
not like
flows, it
alarmingly,
comes in.
alarmingly high.
No, no,
levels.
it meets,
And it's not drinking water or
Right.
anything like that.
it just meets a level, according to DEC, that it doesn't unrestricted beneficial reuse. It doesn't fit into that category. So it fits into this next category of,
You gotta do something with it.
right,
Right.
you can't just
You can't just
spread
take
it
it.
on the ground. It's not the highest level of like, nope, hot, boom, gone, you know what I mean? So that's why they're kind of.
What is the capping look like? How does that work? When they cap the
I assume they're gonna have to use like a clay cap, you know, or even a liner, you know, just to make it non-bioavailable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can tell you that they used that, so way back when Malcolm Purdy, when they did the Superfund site in Cold Spring there, Marathon Battery, in East Foundry Cove. So when they did the wetland restoration, I remember early on walking on that, and you know, you were sliding all over the place because they put this liner in this tidal, you know, marsh. And it was just getting like ever so thin layer of sediment, which, you know, and it was all rocky underneath. And part of the reason they did that was because they eventually stopped excavating to try to get out, you know, I think, what was it? I think it was cadmium. Cadmium was one, I think lead was the other. But such that they were like, well, if we excavate past hot and just get it down to here and then cap it, because if we have to keep on excavating, we're really gonna have to start going down, and how the hell are we gonna restore this, you know? So it does happen, it gets used in that fashion. It's not just we'll cap it and don't do anything, you know, and then, no, we wanna still remove so that it's still within levels that, you know, move to another category, or we feel comfortable with that, with capping, you know, even if there is a breach, it's not necessarily gonna X, Y, Z, so. So I guess that's the, you know, the first approach here, and, you know, we haven't met with the Corps yet. They're obviously gonna be players in this as well, that, you know, require permitting, so, but that was the, I just mentioned, because I know John was at the meeting with the town board, and we were able to accomplish at least that pre-app shortly thereafter, so.
Yeah, keep it on the property.
That's the idea.
What's the Corps' jurisdiction here?
You'll be dredging, so,
But is it
Is it
it's
the waterway?
not a
Is it-
navigable waterway?
it's section 404, I would think. I mean, you could say now, you're right, I guess it's it is perennial. I guess after it goes to Lower Mickle Dam, I'm not sure where it goes after that. If that truly is where this stops.
Does it run into the Hudson at some point?
I would think, but I'm not sure that I know where that surface connection is. and
I
I'll say
can't
exactly
imagine why there would be Army Corps involved.
Right, no, well, it is wetlands, I mean, you know.
No, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
wetlands, but
once you
it's,
start dredging,
but it's,
yeah,
no, I figured the DEC would cover it.
yeah. No, I think, I mean, section 404 does cover that, so it may not be section 10, because it may not be navigable, but certainly 404. So it's all your tax dollars at work.
Lovely.
When did the sheep show up?
Oh, the goats?
Yeah.
Oh, they're gone.
They're gone already?
Yeah, yeah,
No, I didn't get, I heard about it.
they were here for
Yes.
about a week, yeah. Yeah, now it's the
How was
town cutting, because the goats obviously left a lot of stripped woody shrubs. They didn't quite obviously eat all the thorns off the multiflora rose, so it's like, okay,
Right.
we're now
Or
ready
eat the
to.
wooden stems. right?
Exactly. So I'm hoping that the Corps and DEC come within the next month or so, because it's like, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Pretty open thoroughfare, right? Pass? Good, okay. So that's the idea.
Would you do that again?
We'll see. Maybe we'll see how much grows back, because in the fall, that might be the opportunity, because, you know, I know people are starting to put pressure on me in terms of what would you plant and what would you this, and I'm like, you know, I saw some good things like kind of popping up. I think there was some milkweed and whatever, but there's still enough there that even speaking with the woman from Fat and Sassy Goats who brought the goats, she says, yeah, sometimes for the areas of porcelainberry, gotta come through twice.
Fat
You
and
know, I
Sassy
said,
Goats.
yeah,
Fat and
yeah,
sassy
it's,
goats.
yeah, that's the name of the outfit. And I guess it was good marketing, because she said somebody from Chapel hired her, and they were there, you know.
It's like a
take care of
dream,
their property.
something, you know,
Exactly.
take everything out.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so.
Right.
So that's it on those subjects.
All right,
All right.
Good.
Okay,
All right, then I'm going to disappear as quickly as I appeared.
yes, officially adjourned.
Oh, yes, you have to adjourn, that's true.
Yeah, so if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.